By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Timmy Talks, the channel where we talk old school magic. And today we are going to continue with the video series about the Enemy Colors Tournament. In the last episode we saw Beastie Boss winning and also winning the group, and he's now moved on to the quarterfinals. So we're going to keep tracking his deck. He's playing Counterburn and he's playing against Vince in this quarterfinals, and Vince is playing a red and white Moat Flyers deck. And it's looking really, really good. I've got lovely deck photos of both of these decks, but before I start with the deck, maybe it's good to first mention what the enemy colors are, what kind of tournament this is. So every contendant, we had 50 players playing in this tournament. It was an online event. They all had to build a deck with 2 colors. So you couldn't play 3 colors or 1 color or 4 or 5, whatever, just 2 colors only. And the colors, they have to be enemy colors. So red and white are enemies of each other, so that's fine. And of course, blue and red are also. So you couldn't play, for example, white and blue because they're allied colors. So you had to make a deck of enemy colors. And on top of that, your deck had to be perfectly balanced. So the same amount of cards of one color and the same amount of cards of the other color that was chosen by the players. And the artifacts were restricted. And another rule that I put in here as well was to say you can only play with 1 power card. Now the main reason of this rule is that if you don't do this, a lot of players will probably choose blue because that gives you access to Time Walk, Ancestral Recall, and Time Twister. But by saying, you got to limit it to 1 power 9 card, the other colors became more competitive. So blue is no longer like an auto choice for players, and you have more diversity in the decks that you're going to see. And that's, of course, always a good thing. At least in my opinion, it is. Now, if you want to know more about this tournament and about the rules, please check out the description below. And there you can also find a link to the tournament website where you can see all the decks as well. So if you're interested in that, please check out the video's description. And now, before I start with the deck decks, first a message from the sponsor of this video, 3for1 Trading. 3for1 Trading is one of Europe's leading Magic the Gathering retailers. Their online shop has a fantastic selection of high-end Magic cards, especially for vintage, legacy, and yes, also old school Magic players. But 3for1 Trading does more. They're now also buying all Magic the Gathering singles and entire collections, big and small. They're one of the top trading card game traders in Europe, buying way over 1 million Magic cards a year, and they are more than happy to make you an offer for your cards today. So if you have any cards for sale, 3for1 Trading is the place to go. Visit 3for1.gg/selltimmy to get your offer. And we are back and ready to dive into the deck decks. I'm going to start with the deck of the player on the left, that is Beastie Boss. Let's take a look at his Counterburn deck. And here we see the red and blue deck of Beastie Boss, and as you can see, it's really a counter-burn deck, right? A traditional counter-burn deck. And I guess the biggest difference is here, because we're playing in the Enemy Colors Tournament, you need to have an equal amount of red cards versus blue cards. And even when you take cards from your sideboard into your main deck, you always have to have an even amount of blue cards versus red cards. And that's what we see here in the deck photo as well, right? 7 red cards in the sideboard, 7 blue cards in the sideboard, and an Ankh of Mishra in the middle. And then also in the deck photo, lands are in the middle, and on the left and the right side, you see the left side the red cards, the right side the blue cards. And like I said, this is really your standard Counterburn deck. Counterburn, of course, is really good because you've got tons of burn. 4 chains, 4 lightning bolts, 4 psionic blasts. I mean, that alone is enough to kill your opponent. In here, we also see a Goblin Grenade that can deal another 5 points of damage. And then, of course, there's also the counter part of the deck, the counter spells, a full playset of counter spells, and a single mana drain, so really strong. And what's also really good about Counterburn is the creatures. You want to have cheap creatures, you want to play them out early, turn them sideways, deal a little bit of combat damage, and do the rest with your direct damage. So we see here Goblin Grenades, Goblin Balloon Brigade, and Goblins of the Flark and the Flying Man. Those are 6 1-drops. So with this deck, you will probably always have a 1/1 creature on turn 1. Then in turn 2, you only have 2 Ironclaw Orcs in this build. A lot of players would maybe go for 4 Ironclaw Orcs and, for example, take 2 1-drops away. But remember, of course, when you're building, you have that restriction where you need to have the same amount of red cards and blue cards. One of the things that Beastie Boss could have done, I guess, is take out the Stone Rains, put in 2 more Ironclaw Orcs. But then again, I like Stone Rain because there are so many good lands in old school Magic, and it's just good to have a tool to get rid of them. So I understand the inclusion of 2 Stone Rains, and that's probably better in a lot of cases than having 2 more Ironclaw Orcs. And then, of course, at the top end, talking about the creature still, we have the Surrender Befried, the 3/4 flyer, the powerhouse of course. And yeah, it's just really, really good. And then we go into the sideboard. Of course, we have a red elemental blast, our blue elemental blast. We also have some more burn in the form of 2 fireballs and 2 detonates and an earthquake. And then we also have some control magics. And control magic can also be a key card against the right opponent. So this is the deck of Beastie Bus. I have to say, Bus, it's looking pretty strong. Now let's take a look at the deck of your opponent. And here we see the deck of Vince, so it's red and white, and I've called it a Moat deck because Moat just works so well in this build. Moat is an enchantment from Legends for 2 white and 2 that simply reads, creatures without flying cannot attack. So it works both ways. It works for your creatures and for the opponent's creatures. So an obvious combination with Moat is that you play with a lot of flying creatures, and that's exactly what Vince is doing here. He's playing with Granite Gargoyle for 3, Dragon Whelp for 4, and then Sarah Angel at the top end for 5. So it's a really nice build-up. And when you're playing white and red, one of the things I love about playing white and red myself is that you've got access to lightning bolts and to swords to plowshare. So you've got your bolts for the small stuff, you've got your swords for the big stuff. So you just have a lot of solutions in your deck. And then of course you've got your disenchants. Also we see a fireball here to finish the job. What's interesting here is that it also includes 2 fissures. I think Fissure is quite a versatile card, right? It's 2 red and 3 for an instant from the dark, and it can destroy target land or creature. And I should say bury, and bury means that your opponent cannot regenerate the creature. So, you know, Fissure is quite interesting because it gives you options. And I think in this format where you see a lot of important non-basic lands, like for example, the Mazes of If, we also see here in Vince's deck, you know, Fissure can solve that problem for you. Now, then we also have some interesting artifacts. Now, remember, the artifacts are all restricted. I think if the artifacts weren't restricted, Vince would probably play with an extra Gem-Day Tome. But in this case, he's chosen for Gem-Day Tome and Disrupting Scepter. And that makes sense because Moat is kind of a control card, right? You're kind of locking the game. Your opponent cannot attack anymore. And what you then can do, of course, is start drawing more cards than your opponent, which will eventually lead to victory. Or, of course, you can do the opposite, which is discarding the cards of your opponent, which you can do with Disrupting Scepter. Either way, it's card advantage. So I'm not surprised to see Disrupting Scepter here in the deck. One of the cards that he's not playing main, that maybe I thought he would be playing main, but we do see it in the sideboard, is Earthquake. Earthquake, of course, for obvious reasons, works really well with Moat. I mean, Moat makes sure that your opponent cannot attack with the creatures, and then the moment you draw into Earthquake, you can just destroy them all. And sometimes you do want to destroy them all, because what if your opponent plays with, for example, a Timmy, right? Timmy doesn't really care if there's a Moat on a battlefield. It can still tap and deal 1 damage. And then, of course, Earthquake is a really nice way to get rid of multiple of those creatures if they're on the board. We also see a beautiful fork in the sideboard. What I have to say in general, by the way, Vince, your deck is looking stunning. It's all black bordered. That's pretty impressive. I also love the Karma in the sideboard. I guess it's been really useful. In this matchup, of course, it's not going to be useful. I do see some sideboard cards in your sideboard, though, that are super useful in this match. We see 3 red Elemental Blasts. They can be really good against Beastie Bus. And we also see 2 COP reds. So this is going to be a really close match here, I think, in the quarterfinals. Both decks are looking very strong. Talking about that, let's go to the quarterfinals of the enemy colors. Enjoy. Game number 1 here with Bus sitting on the left. He's on Counterburn. Vince sitting on the right, and he's on red-white Moat. Beautiful playmat, by the way, Vince. It's looking very green, though, for the colors that you're playing, but love the playmat. And let's see who's on the play here. I believe it's Bus. Yeah, it looks like it's Bus here, starting with the Tolaria, tapping for 1 blue. Okay, there's a Flying Man. He's playing, of course, 6 1-drops, I believe, 1-drop creatures, so it makes sense that he has a 1-drop here in the form of Flying Man, 1/1 flying creature from Arabian Nights. Let's see what Vince can do. He's got a Plateau. And, oh man, that's, I guess, a Lightning Bolt. Couldn't really see it. The quality of the screen is not fantastic. But we'll try to make it work. I do believe it gets better over time. There's a Volcanic Island here being played by Bus. And are we going to see another Flying Man? No, a Soul Ring. Is he going to cast a Surrender Efreet? That would be one of the options. No, a Stone Rain here on the Plateau. So he's going to lose his Plateau. And now he's got to rebuild. There's a Plains. And just to pass. Now remember, Vince has a lot of answers in his deck. You know, 4 Lightning Bolts, 4 Swords to Plowshares, 4 Disenchants. So, you know, he can get back. He's not frightened, I guess, by seeing a big creature on the other side of the board. Talking about that, let's see what Bus can do. Oh, Bus already passed. So there's a mountain by Vince. So having a Plains and a mountain, also a pass here. Vince having 6 cards in hand and 4 cards in hand for boss. I believe after the draw there's a maze of it for him. So it's a very controlling, slow kind of point where we've, that we've reached in the game now, I guess. The question is, are we going to see a disenchant on end step? Yes, we are disenchant on the Soul Ring. And I think for boss that is not all too worrying. His deck doesn't need a lot of mana. Playing, of course, with tons of burn. 4 chains, 4 lightning bolts, 4 psionic blasts. Vince here playing a mountain passing the turn, so no Granite Gargoyle for him. Is playing 4 Granite Gargoyles and I believe 3 Dragon Whelps and 4 Serra Angels. And look at this, boss also just passing, missing a land drop here. There's a Plains by Vince. Taking the Plains back though. Choosing to go for a Plateau instead. Or not, taking the Plateau back, going for the Plains. Okay, whatever you want, man. I think looking at his list, it doesn't really matter that much. Look at this end step Lightning Bolt on the life total here of Vince, dropping to 17. And I have to say, I always get nervous when I see so many dice on the table, by the way. But it is what it is. We see a Surrender Befreeter 3/4 flyer from Arabian Nights. And Vince here playing a Maze. Yeah, that's a perfect answer. Because that means that the Maze can easily stop the Serendip, and then boss is just taking damage every single turn. Is of course playing with 2 Stone Rain's main. Already played 1 out though. And here we see a Goblins of the Flark, a 1/1 Goblin from the Dark with Mountain Walk. And Vince has exactly mountains. And let's see what he can do. Playing another Maze. Okay, 2 mazes in the deck for Vince. Found both of them. And there's also a Dragon Whelp. So a creature here from Vince. Are we going to see a counter spell by boss? That's the question. Of course, Dragon Whelp, you can also bolt it or chain it. And boss, of course, dropping here to 18 because of his Surrender Befreet. Yeah, there we see a Chain Lightning on the Dragon Whelp as to be expected. Attacking with both creatures, of course, being sent back by the Maze. In my opinion, it is always worth to attack because you never know what your opponent is going to do. Sometimes they forget to use the Maze. And also, if you always attack, then when you play the Time Walk, it's not that big of a surprise. Or I mean, it is a big surprise, actually, the opposite. Well, you know what I mean. Anyway, let's see what Vince can do. Playing out a Granite Gargoyle here. So 2/2 flyer, and for 1 red, you can give it +0/+1. But there's a counter spell, though, countering the Granite Gargoyle. Of course, the Gargoyle, a little bit harder to kill with the Lightning Bolt because it can pump its own toughness. And Bassi dropping to 17. But Serendip is really going to be annoying here. And because both players have a lot of answers, I think we're going to have some very long games. 3 cards in hand for Vince, and I believe also 3 cards in hand for Boss. So Boss tapping and untapping again. A little bit in the tank here. I mean, you want a Stone Rain, right? You just want to get rid of one of the mazes. At least then you can deal some damage. Or I guess play another creature. Oh, there's a Wheel of Fortune. Okay. That explains why he was in the tank. Are we going to see some lightning bolts here by Vince before he discards his hand? So Vince taking a moment here. And he's going to discard. Unfortunately, a lot of glare there. We cannot really see what he's discarding. But we do see a lightning bolt and a recall being discarded by Boss. Yeah, I think that's unfortunate, right? You hope to kind of draw into a mountain that at least you can fire off the bolt, before you play the wheel. But then again, you don't want to wait long because you're just losing life every single turn. You want to kind of change the situation on the board. And I believe Boss didn't have a land drop yet, so could play out a land here. It's a strip mine. Okay, that works. Taking care of one of the mazes. Now at least he can deal some damage. Attacking with both creatures. Of course, the maze here on the Serendip. Exactly. And 1 damage here for Vince, dropping to 16. So Vince on 16 and Boss here on 17. Six cards in hand for him, and I guess it's going to be a pass. Because he already played his land. And I believe he plays Ancestral Recall as his power 9 card, so has no Moxen or Black Lotus he could play. Oh, here on end step, Vince firing off 2 lightning bolts. Putting Bus here on 11. And now untapping upkeep and draw. And this is what I'm talking about, by the way. If you're having multiple sets of dice, it's very tricky because you already see it now where Bus still has Vince's life total on 17. Vince is correct that he's on 16. But then you could just get these discussions. Here we see a Mishra's Factory. And he's going to tap 2. What do we see? A Felwer Stone, okay. And I believe Vince, of course, has now more cards than 3 in hand there. Probably. Although he did that double bolt, of course, on end step. Oh, he's also going to wheel. That explains it. That explains the aggressive use of the bolts. Going to discard 2 lands in the disenchant. And there are also a lot of lands gone for bots. I believe I also saw a Fireball in there, or not. Not quite sure what that one red card was. Anyway, both players drawing 7 new cards. And what a spectacular first game this is. I personally love it. You know, I love draw 7s. They spice things up. They make the game fun. And of course, a very good move by Vince because he only had 2 lands and a disenchant left and already fired off the 2 lightning bolts. And now Bus taking the turn, dropping here to 10. Let's see what else he can do. Having now 8 cards, of course, after that wheel and his draw step. I'm sure there's a land in there, right? Could also consider to just first attack. Do the rest later. That's another option, of course. Looks like he's going to play out a land here. Yep, that's a mountain. Tapping the mountain. What are we going to see? Okay, there's a Goblin Balloon Brigade, a 1/1 Goblin, and for 1 red you can give it flying until end of turn. There's the attack with 2 creatures. Again, of course, the mace on the surrender. 1 damage here for Vince, who's going to drop to 15. And there's the pass. Okay. Now remember, Boss, of course, playing with 4 counterspells and a mana drain, I believe, and also has access to 4 Psionic Blasts, so has a lot of instant action. So passing the turn doesn't mean that he cannot do anything. Remember, it is, of course, a blue player. But Vince knows this. And I kind of feel that Vince is still a little bit behind, despite the fact that Bus is on a lower life total. I mean, Bus has 3 creatures there. Vince only has a mace. Does have, of course, the Mishra's Factory, but that doesn't really do much at the moment, because Bus can give the Goblin Balloon Brigade flying, and of course the other Goblin is Mountain Walk, and the other creature's flying as well. I mean, a Moat would help a little bit. I guess a Sarah Angel would be really nice here. Just a Sarah. Probably is going to get countered away, but if not, it's really good in this situation. Putting those 3 lands there separate. I wonder what that means. And what I personally like about, Bus playing with these smaller creatures is that it's always annoying for your opponent. Do you really want to waste the Swords to Plowshares on a 1/1? Of course you don't. But at the same time, you don't want to destroy the Surrender Befried because you've got that mace combination and he's taking damage every turn. And he's on 10, so do you want to use a Lightning Bolt on a Goblin? No, you don't really. So it's always not very appealing to destroy a 1/1. And before you know it, you've taken a lot of damage from the 1/1 and you're kind of regretting your earlier decision. But let's first see what Vince is going to do here. We do see a Strip Mine. And he's still counting. I wonder if he has a Fireball. Like, if you have a Fireball, you can take out both 1/1s. That would actually be quite good. And I believe you still have some mana left to also deal a damage to Bus. Put him on 9. So that would be great value. But he's not tapping a red, though. Tapping a white, a Mishra's Factory, and a Strip Mine. I really wonder what he's got in hand. I do believe it's a Fireball. No, it's not. But he can make more mana now. It's a Basalt Monolith. Tapping the Monolith for 3. So basically the Monolith did nothing here, right? It kind of compensated for itself. There we see a Granite Gargoyle, which is a 2/2 flyer. We've seen it before in the match. And he's also going to tap 2 more. A white and a colorless. Okay, so I guess he still had one floating. And there's a counterspell, though, on the Gargoyle. I'm not quite sure if this makes up for the mana. I believe he should have tapped one more, but I could be mistaken. Anyway, Vince passing the turn. Beastie taking another damage, dropping to 9. But that Gargoyle is quite annoying here for Boss. Also, with the 2 red open, Vince can make it into a 2/4, which makes it a good blocker for the Surrender Befreed. If, of course, Boss has a Psionic Blast, this would also be a good moment to fire it off. The problem, though, with the blast is it also deals 2 damage to yourself, and Boss is getting pretty low. He's already on 9. He's got to be worried about that. Then again, Vince has already played out, I believe, 3 Lightning Bolts. So only has 1 more in the deck. Is, of course, playing with a single Fireball as well, because that Fireball gets pretty dangerous looking at the amount of mana that Vince can produce, especially if he untaps the Basalt Monolith. Okay, this is big. Stone Rain on the maze. So finally got rid of both mazes of If. And he is attacking now with his Serendip and of course the Goblins of the Flark. Now remember, Goblins of the Flark has Mountain Walk. But he's able to block here with the Gargoyle, tap his 2 mountains, make it into a 2/4. Exactly, so that works. And he is taking 1 damage, going to drop to 14. Are we now going to see a bolt on the Gargoyle or a chain? Or is it going to go on to the life total? There's a lightning bolt. I assume it's on the Gargoyle. So that means Vince is just dropping to 14. So it's 14 versus 9. Yeah, untapping the Monolith here, but it should stay tapped exactly. What I really like about the Monolith is that you can untap it at any time when you pay 3. So it's not like a Mana Vault where you can only untap it in your upkeep. And that's so good, of course, with the Basalt Monolith. And that's why you've got that combo Power Artifact Basalt Monolith to make unlimited amounts of mana. Let's see what Vince can do. Has a lot of cards in hand. The thing is, if you have, for example, a Moat, right, it doesn't really help you. It stops the Goblins of the Flark, but I mean, Goblin Balloon Brigades and Serendip can just fly over your Moat. We haven't seen a single Swords to Plowshares yet, so also kind of waiting for that. I mean, this is a good moment for Swords. You know, take down the Serendip, also because Boss doesn't have 2 blue open anymore, so he's kind of vulnerable. Ooh, he's counting his lands. Are we going to see a Fireball? If he has a Fireball, I think he can win it here. Let's see how much mana does he have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He has 9, so he can do Fireball of 8. Put Boss on 1, then Boss will die to his own Surrender Befreed. So he could go for it if he has it. I mean, what is Vince afraid of? If he has it, you should just play it, right? But of course, takes a moment to assess the situation. Want to make absolutely sure that he doesn't make a mistake. Doesn't have to worry about Blue Elemental Blast yet, because this is, of course, the first game, so it's before sideboarding. Are we going to see the Fireball? Ooh, for a moment, I thought it was coming. But he's taking it back. Maybe he doesn't even have it in hand, of course. I don't know. Maybe he's thinking about something else. But I know when my opponent is counting lands, no, it's a Dragon Whelp. When my opponent usually is counting lands, I'm getting sweaty, you know, because they usually do it when I'm under 10, and it's usually a red player. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be a huge Fireball. But here we see a Dragon Whelp being played instead. And the Whelp is also good, because the Whelp can stop the Serendip, which is pretty important. 3 cards left in hand for Vince, passing the turn. So Vince on 14, and Boss is probably now going to drop here to 8 because of his own Serendip. Exactly. I have to say, both players are doing a great job tracking their life totals. I have to give a compliment to that. I've seen much, much worse. Now let's see what Bus can do. Playing out a City of Brass. I mean, I guess you just want to attack here, right? You could even attack for 3 because you've got the mace to take a creature out of combat. Then again, yeah, you could do that actually. Then you give your Goblin Bloom Brigade flying. But he's just going to attack with the 2 though. Of course, you have to be, I'm not thinking you have to be worried about the crackback because you are on 8. So you don't want to use the mace for offense here. So it makes sense that Bus is only attacking with 2. And now the big question for Vince is, am I going to block here? I think the answer is yes, because Bus has that mace. Although Vince has a strip mine. Wait a minute. He could strip the mace, so he could actually take the damage here, drop to 10. I mean, that's still pretty far away of getting burned out. You got to think about the burn that Bus has, 4 Psionic Blasts, 4 Chains, 4 Lightning Bolts. Then again, he's played some burn already. You're on 14. If you drop to 10, I think next turn, well, he can chump with the Balloon Brigade. This is actually a pretty complicated situation. Yeah, he is going to block on the Serendip. And then he can pump it here, make it a 4-3 to kill the Serendip. That's what he does. I guess it's a good decision because he can chump with the Goblin Balloon Brigade, right? So just take 1, you go to 13. Still, I would consider stripping here. Oh, another Serendip. Yeah, that changes the situation completely. Because if he didn't play the Serendip, what you could have done is strip the maze and then next turn animate your factory attack, kind of force Boss to chump with the Balloon Brigade. At least you've killed a 1-1. And now it's up to Vince to really find another blocker again for that flying creature. Vince on 13, Boss on 8. Or of course find that Fireball and finish it off. But the problem is that Boss now has 3 blue open, right? City of Brass, Volcanic Island, Tolaria, so has access to blue. So you have to be mindful of that. Then again, Bus only has 2 cards in hand. I think if I would have a Fireball now, I would just try it. I would try it out. Let him have it, as they say. But maybe Vince has more options. And probably doesn't have the Fireball at all, or else he would have played it last turn. It's counting again the mana. I find this fascinating. Crossing the arms, raising the sleeves, like he's up to something. But what? We do not know. What are you holding in hand there, Mr. Vince? I mean, if you have another Whelp, it would be great. Okay, has a Sarah Angel. I mean, Sarah Angel's good. You can kill the Serendip with it. Right, so that's good. And remember, he's got that strip mine, so next turn he could consider stripping the mace to start attacking with the Sarah. But again, I have to say that Goblin Balloon Brigade is pretty good here. Because let's say next turn he strips the mace, attacks with the Angel, then Bus can double block with the Goblin Balloon Brigade and the Serendip Efreet. Or of course he can counter the Angel. Yeah, you see Vince like, are you serious? Letting me count all my mana here? Yeah, that's the thing, playing against these blue players. Then again, it's another counterspell in the graveyard, Okay, here we see a Moat. Gonna take a damage, drop to 12. So at least it's gonna stop him, prevent him from attacking with the Goblins of the Flark, who's now upside down, by the way. I don't know what happened with the Goblins of the Flark. Maybe he was having some rum during the battles, just having a good time. Oh yeah, now he's turning around again. There's the attack for 4. And that means Vince is gonna drop here to 9? Ooh, to 8 even. Okay, ooh. Getting difficult here for Vince. Has been ahead in life total for most of the time in the game, but now getting pretty close to Bus's life total. Bus on 7, of course, after taking another damage from his own Serendip. Vince on 8, and we're slowly going towards the end of this first game. It's been a very, very fun game to watch, I have to say. The game's really going up and down. Both players, like I said earlier, playing with a lot of answers. But also a lot of threats. Here we see another Sarah Angel hitting the board. Or are we going to see another counterspell? No counterspell, okay. 4/4 flyer that you don't have to tap when she attacks. So Really, really good creature and a great blocker here for that Serendip. Boss dropping here to 6. Yeah, and this Sarah Angel is problematic. Needs to find an answer. Okay, there's Chaos Orb. That's an answer. Are we going to see a disenchant, though? Or are we going to see a disenchant? Oh, there's the disenchant. Yeah. That's the disenchant that was really needed here by Vince. Taking care of the Chaos Orb. This is a great moment for Vince. This Chaos Orb is so important for him. Vince on 8. Boss on 6. Attacking here. Of course, cannot attack with the Goblins of the Flark because of the Moat. Giving his Goblin Balloon Brigade flying, attacking with both. I guess it's going to be a block here on the Serendip Ifrit. Can use the mace if he wants to save the Serendip, but then he doesn't have the mace to protect his own life total. I think he needs the mace. Ooh, he is going to use it, so I guess he's going to chump. Yeah, you can chump, of course, the Sarah with it. That also makes sense. Another mace. Oh, ho, ho. Yeah, that changes the math drastically. That other mace in hand for Bus changes the situation. So Vince took a damage here, went to 7. Yeah, if you're Vince, you know, I guess you're just going to attack with the Sarah, despite the fact that he's got the mace. Going to send it back probably, but, you know, whatever. Bus, of course, going to drop to 5 next turn because of his Serendip. So if Vince can find a little bit of burn, but it counts for both players. And I believe we haven't seen a single... Okay, here we now see a strip. So, of course, he can strip the mace. Still at that strip. Attacking here. Probably going to see a chump. With the Serendip, you kind of have to. Exactly. So, 2 cards in hand for Vince. That strip mine was really good, by the way. There we see a Gem de Tome. Okay. That can get you closer to whatever you want to get. Like, for example, that Fireball that I've been talking about. For about half the game that Vince probably doesn't have in hand at all. This is going to play out the Gem de Tome, passing the turn back to Boss. Yeah, Boss is more and more cornered. Okay, so we seem to have a little glitch here, but it looks like nothing has really changed. What I was saying, Boss is getting more and more cornered, so he drew a card for turn, passed the turn back here to Vince. I believe both players kind of waited for the technical difficulty to be solved. And yeah, like I said, you know, Boss's situation is getting more and more troublesome. And Vince, of course, is not in the clear himself because, I mean, he's so low. He's on 7. And Boss, of course, still being on 6. Ooh, this could make a big difference here. Fisher on the mace. Maces are playing a big role in this first game, by the way. There's the attack. Has to chump with the Goblin Balloon Brigade. 1 card left in hand. There we see the Granite Gargoyle. And 2/2 flyer. And this could be the end here for Boss. Boss, of course, being on 6. Yeah, he'll take 6 next turn. Or not. He's going to do something. He's not dead yet. Okay, there we see a Serendip. Okay. That kind of works, you know. The thing is here, though, I mean, Vince is going to attack with Sarah and Gargoyle, right? Then he can block the Gargoyle, which he probably cannot kill because Vince has enough red to pump it to 4 toughness. Or he could chump on the Sarah, take 2, drop to 4. There's a Fisher, though. I think this is it. Fisher winning it here for Vince in game 1, though. This is just game number 1, but let's wait. What is he going to do? Yeah, he's going to attack here. Exactly. I thought, is he going to do something else? No, he's going to win here in game 1. It's just game 1, though. Now, both players are going to dive into their sideboards. And remember, Boss has access to cards like Blue Elemental Blast. Vince, of course, has access to Red Elemental Blast, but also to COP Red. So we could be seeing a very, very interesting game number 2. But first, let's let these players dive into their sideboards, and we will catch back up with them in game number 2. Game number 2, here we go. So it's 1 game up for Vince, meaning Boss is here on the play. Let's see if he can have another turn 1 play. Oh, there's a Lyria of Alexandria. Yeah, that is pretty good for Boss. Then the question is, Vince, do you have an answer? There's a strip mine. That's the answer. Stripping away the Loa. What are the chances? Boss only having 1 Loa, of course, in the deck. And Vince also just having 1 strip mine. It's a 1 strip format that we're playing here. And there is a City of Brass into a Goblin Balloon Brigade, meaning a damage here for boss dropping to 19. Goblin Balloon Brigade, we saw that in game 1 as well. The 1/1 creature for 1 red, you can give it flying. And remember, boss is also playing with 1 Goblin Grenade. So he's playing with 4 goblins in total and with 1 grenade. Attacking it with the 1/1. Vince dropping here to 19. Passing here the turn back to Vince. So both players on 19. And now boss, of course, has counter magic up. There we see a City of Brass for Vince. And a pass by Vince. And again, a little upside down goblin. We saw that in game 1 as well. There's another City of Brass. I mean, those City of Brasses are great, but they could start hurting you as well. And I believe Vince here dropping to 18. And just passing the turn. So, I mean, I guess boss just has a lot of counter magic in hand. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to play a land a turn, keep attacking you for as long as I can. Just keeping my counter magic up, and that makes sense. Let's see what Vince can do in the meanwhile, taking his turn 3 here, starting with the basic planes. Are we going to see a Granite Gargoyle? We're going to see a Soul Ring. Now his access to 4 mana. So could potentially play a Dragon Whelp or a Granite Gargoyle here. Seems to be a little bit in the tank here. I mean, the thing is, you probably know whatever you're going to play, there's a really high chance of boss countering it away. Then what we also have to take into account here is that, of course, we're after sideboarding. So Vince could decide to wait because he wants to play something with a Red Elemental Blast backup, right? So maybe you just want to keep 1 red open to counter the counterspell. That could also be an option. So there's the pass here back to boss. So Vince deciding not to do anything else. There's the attack for 1. And Vince dropping here to 17. I have to say that Little Balloon Brigade's done a lot of work here. Already 3 damage. I mean, that's a lightning bolt, right? A lightning bolt of value from a Goblin Balloon Brigade. That's good value, in my opinion. And it's still there, of course. 6 cards in hand for boss, passing the turn, missing a land drop here. Let's see what Vince can do. There's another mountain, going to tap 2. Are we going to see a Gargoyle? There's the 2/2 flyer. Are we going to see a counterspell? We're going to see 1 blue being tapped. Blue Elemental Blast here. Are we going to see a red Elemental Blast? No, we're not. So there's the Gargoyle gone because of the blue blast. 5 cards in hand for Vince. And now also 5 cards in hand, I believe, after the draw for boss. And he could just continue attacking here. Is the Goblin Balloon Brigade going to be the MVP of game number 2? That's a big question. Maybe he already is. He's done so much work. There's the attack, talking about work. Damage number 4 dealt by the Goblin Balloon Brigade. I've never seen such an efficient goblin, you know? It's a little bit of a flavor fill that it's attacking so well, if you ask me. Also, when you read the flavor text of Goblin Balloon Brigade, it's so funny. We see a pass, by the way, by boss. Has found a volcanic island now. So that's good. Let's see what Vince can do. Vince has a lot of mana. The question is, what is he going to do with it? Okay, changing his mind. You're going for Hammerheim instead of for Plains. Passing the turn here to boss. So maybe Vince's hand is full of lands, right? I mean, again, a Sarah Angel would be really nice for him. There's the attack for 1. Look at that. So now it's dealt 5 points of damage. A quarter of Vince's life is gone because of 1 heroic. Oh, and there's the sacrifice. It's a martyr. Wow. This is the best Goblin Balloon Brigade ever. It's half the life total of Vince. That's impressive. I think I've never been able to do that with a single Goblin Balloon Brigade. But at least now it's gone. You know, Vince is on 10. Goblin Balloon Brigade is gone. But look at this, just a pass. I wonder what Vince has in hand. Maybe they're all disenchants and lands. You know, that could be the case. 6 cards in hand. Gonna tap 4. Gonna take 2 points of damage. Gonna drop to 17. A Brain Geyser for 2. Okay. Are we gonna see a counterspell? Gonna tap 2 red. What are we gonna see? There's a fork. Okay, forking it. I love this. Also drawing 2 cards. Yeah, fork. Fork is one of my favorite cards. The thing is with fork, when I see somebody else playing with it, it's really good, but when I play with it, I'm always waiting for a target. But that's probably just me, but really liking this fork here by Vince, also drawing 2 cards. And is he going to find some firepower? Boss, of course, tapped out. If he has a Sarah, nope, just passing the turn. This was the moment to play a big creature because Boss was tapped out. But unfortunately for Vince, he's just not finding any gunpowder, just passing the turn. Not finding any meat on the sandwich. And let's see what Boss can do. Boss is also just passing the turn, so both players must have a hand chock full of answers and not a lot of threats. And I wonder, Boss, are you still playing any Psionic Blasts? We haven't seen a single Psionic Blast, and that would be quite good, because 4 damage when your opponent's already on 10. Talking about Psionic Blast, yep, we're going to see the Psionic Blast. That's it. Oh, reverse damage! I love this, Vince. This is so cool. Reverse damage. Counterspell, though, on the reverse damage. That's unfortunate. Boo! Oh, man, that's so bad. Great to see the reverse damage in action, though, but it's not going to work. Countered away by Beastie Boss. Of course, Boss also taking 2 damage himself, dropping to 13, and Vince is now on 5. Ah, man, it was so nice to see the reverse damage. It wasn't meant to be. So we're seeing a lot of cool plays here from Vince. That fork, and then that reverse damage. And of course, we had the heroic Goblin Balloon Brigade by Boss. Now there's also a Bolt. He's on 2. Oh, getting dangerously low. Is Boss going to win the second game here? There's a Detonate. Is Detonate going to do it, though? I believe he can only detonate for 1, right? Because the casting cost is 1. That's it. Did he have a Flower Stone there? Anyway, players are picking up the card, so I guess that's it. Boss winning here, game number 2, and that means it's 1-1. So we're going to go to an all-decisive game number 3 here in the quarterfinals of the Enemy Colors Tournament. Game number 3, here we go, the big decider here in the quarterfinals. Who will advance to the semifinals? We will know at the end of this third game. 1-1, Vince on the play, and it looks like Boss is taking a mulligan here. Yeah, going to put a card on the bottom, so I guess he's starting with 6 instead of 7. And it looks like Vince kept his hand. Oh, there's a Loa, Library of Alexandria here for Vince. We saw that in game 2 for Boss, actually. The question now is, does Boss have an answer as well? No, he doesn't, at least not yet. Playing a Tolaria. He's playing 2 Stone Rains in his 60. So hopefully for him, he can find that quickly. Or is Vince going to beat Boss here? And are we going to see Boss in the upcoming episode in the semifinals? We're not there yet, of course, but it's looking good for Vince. Boss here taking his turn, playing a City of Brass, passing the turn back to Vince. And Vince playing a basic mountain. Passing the turn. And I'm just going to say it again, Vince, that playmat is stunning. Absolutely stunning. With the Elvish Archer there and, of course, the Earthbind art. Looks really beautiful. Boss playing another Volcanic Island. So if he has a Stone Rain, he has the mana for it. But I guess he doesn't because he passed the turn. On end step, Vince, of course, using the Loa. So now has 9 cards in hand. Luxury here for Vince. There's the Strip Mine. It's going to tap 3. Are we going to see a Granite Gargoyle? There's the Gargoyle. Are we going to see a Counterspell or a Blue Elemental Blast? Or a Lightning Bolt? So many answers here for Boss. Going to go for the Blue Elemental Blast, taking care of the Gargoyle. Untap, upkeep, and a draw here for Boss. What can he do? Has to feel the pressure here of playing against his active Loa. Has to try to put some pressure on the board. At least trying to attack the life total of Vince. Okay, this helps. Ancestral Recall hopefully gets him closer to an answer for the Library of Alexandria. There's a red. It's going to tap 3. Are we now going to see the Stone Rain? There's the Stone Rain. Yeah, that Ancestral Recall really, really helped. And just a reminder of the rules here of the Enemy Colors Tournament. Each player was allowed to play with 1 Power 9 card. The reason that we did this is because you want to make sure that not everybody goes for a color combination with blue, because then you've got access to Time Walk, Ancestral Recall, and Time Twister. So you want to, of course, create diversity in these tournaments. So then you say, okay, only 1 Power 9 card, you have to make a decision. making blue a little bit less, of an obvious choice. Still a very good color, of course, because it can give you access to a card like this, Ancestral Recall. But of course, other colors have pluses and minuses as well. But Vince, of course, has been able to use, I believe, the library for 3 turns. So also drew 3 cards off of the library. So kind of an even playing field now for the players. So Vince playing out his Gargoyle here. Is he going to miss a land drop? Question mark. And I do believe then that he's got a discard if he's going to miss a land drop, but could be wrong. Counting his hand here. Didn't play out a land yet. And I think he has to discard. That's why he's taking time, because it's a tough decision, of course. Going to discard the Dragon Whelp. Passing the turn. Very unfortunate here for Vince. Started really well with the Loa, but now seems to be low on lands, needing to discard. And all of a sudden, the tables have turned, and Boss is like fully back into this 3rd game. And also has a grip full of cards there in his hands. What can he do? Gonna put the lands there kind of separate. What does that mean? Thinking about tapping those 2 lands, it seems. Yep, there he goes. Tapping 3. Are we going to see a Serendip here? Nope, it's a Recall. Of course, then he can get back the Ancestral Recall. Recall the Ancestral Recall. What card is he going to pitch, though? Ooh, Wheel of Fortune. Ooh. That's a pretty big card to pitch. Could be very useful later in the game, but decides to pitch it and draw 3 cards immediately with his Ancestral Recall that he just picked up. Playing out the island. And does that mean that Boss now also has to discard? Not quite sure. Of course, also lost 2 cards, of course, to the Recall, right? The Recall itself and the card you're going to exchange the Ancestral Recall with, which was that Wheel of Fortune. So 7 in hand, passing the turn. So kind of both players having lots of cards. There's the Ruins of Troycare. That's the tap land from Fallen Empire, because Fallen Empires was allowed in this format. There's the 2/2. I felt it would bring in some nice options for the players. And there we see the Chaos Orb. 6 cards in hand for Vince and a pass. And I think finding that land was pretty important. But I guess if you're Vince, you also really want to have your second red. Being able to cast, for example, the Dragon Whelps. And you want to get to 5 so you can start playing out your Serra Angels probably. But let's first see what Boss can do in his turn. Does he have a detonate? It would be nice to detonate the Chaos Orb. And yes, in response, Vince can flip on one of your lands, but let him, It's gonna tap 2. Okay, there's a Goblins of the Flark and another Goblins of the Flark. Now, both of these creatures are very annoying for Vince. Why? Because they have Mountain Walk, and Vince has a mountain. So, I mean, these Goblins of the Flark are just annoying. Again, it's a 1/1. Do you want to flip on a 1/1? No. But it's going to hurt you. And there we also see a Chain Lightning. Probably on the Gargoyle here. Exactly. This was a good turn for Boss. Destroying the Gargoyle, putting 2 threats on the table. And those Goblins of the Flux are looking pretty good, against Vince. Playing 2 in total, and both of them here on the battlefield. Can Vince find an answer? I wonder if he boarded in the Earthquake. Probably not, because there are so many flyers in the deck of Boss. Perhaps he also boarded out the Moats, Because Moat's not going to work against Flying Man, not going to work against Serendip Efreet, not going to work against Goblin Balloon Brigade, so it only works against these 2, little goblins. And is it then really worth your while to keep your Moats in? Going to tap a white. We are going to see a Swords to Plowshares on one of the 2 Goblins here, and that makes sense. just do it. You know, rip the band-aid off. Just do it. If you wait with it too long, you're going to regret it. I think this is a good decision by Vince. Of course, I don't know what other cards he's got in hand, but you just want to get rid of those creatures. They're just annoying. Another Swords, okay. Cleaning up the board here. Double Swords. Goblins of the Flark are gone. Not as successful as that Goblin Balloon Brigade we saw in Game 2. And I think if you're Buzz, you're also not too sad about this. I mean, 2 goblins eating 2 swords. That's pretty decent. You gain some life out of them. Talking about life, Buster being on 17 and Vince still being on a safe 20. So both players still pretty high in their life totals. It's going to tap 2, it seems. 3 in total. Are we going to see a Surrender a Freeze here? A 3/4 flyer. No, we're going to see a Detonate. Detonating here the Chaos Orb. In response, of course, Vince can use it. I mean, he probably is going to. Why wouldn't you? Then the question is, what are you going to flip on? So, and interestingly enough, he keeps the 1 red open, right? Kind of indicating to Buzz that he has access to a red Elemental Blast. It's going to flip here on the Volcanic Island. Is it going to be a hit? It is a hit. Very nice flip, Vince. Very controlled. The thing is with these Chaos Orb flips, everybody has missed maybe once or twice. So that's always in the back of your head. Maybe I'm going to miss. And that's such a feel bad. Like you want to hit. Just a pass by Vince here, by the way. Not finding any more lands. There we see a Chaos Orb here by Boss as well. And sometimes I'm getting some questions about the Chaos Orb and the ruling around Chaos Orb. So Chaos Orb has a special errata that you can only use it on 1 target. And the reason for that is obvious, because if you wouldn't, then everybody would be forced to play all the cards separate from each other and all that stuff. So it has a special errata, and you know, you can look it up online if you want to know more about it. I'm personally really happy with that because it means the Chaos Orb is playable in the old school format, and I think it's such a cool card. Vince here, by the way, taking his turn. Finding a threat here in the form of a Mishra's Factory. And also a land, so now he's got 5. So if he has a Sarah, then again, do you want to play a Sarah against the Chaos Orb and of course all that untapped blue mana? That's the question. Hammerheim here found for Boss. Passing the turn here back to Vince. So both players kind of, you know, top decking, trying to find a threat. Tapping 5. Are we going to see a Sarah Angel? Sarah Angel hitting the board. Are we going to see a counterspell? Or perhaps a flip? There's the pass. Or perhaps a Psionic Blast. Actually, Boss has a lot of answers to Sarah Angel. It's going to tap 4. We're going to see Control Magic. Control Magic. Yeah, of course. Control Magic is another option. And I believe he plays the Control Magics in the sideboard. So these cards come in from the sideboard. Now remember, with the enemy colors, you always have to make sure that you have the same amount of cards of both colors. So even after sideboarding, you have to make sure they're the same amount in each deck. Because I really wanted to see balanced decks, right? Where both colors are celebrated. That's why I put that rule in for this tournament. But this is a problem for Vince. Has to find a disenchant, and then of course hope that, you know, Boss is not going to counter the disenchant. Yeah, Control Magic, such a good card. There's a mountain. Nope, taking the mountain back. I mean, the thing is, if you have a disenchant, you have to play it. The worst thing here, I think, for Vince is if he wants to go for double bolt and that, for example, Boss counters one of the 2 bolts so that the angel doesn't die, but you do lose 2 cards. That would be a horror scenario for him. So I think you really want to think twice before you want to do it. Another option that's not ideal is, of course, playing a Fisher or playing a Fireball on that Sarah Angel of yours, because then it's a 2-for-1. Disenchant would be the best option, but even with Disenchant, you have to worry, you know, there's blue mana open there. Or, of course, cast another Sarah Angel. Why not? You know, more Sarahs. And now we are going to see a counterspell. Yeah, that is so bad. That is the blue player, right? He steals your one Sarah, counters the other. It's just not fair. Now, maybe this red can give access to red elemental blast. That can get rid of the control magic. Ooh, taking back the mountain again, though. I mean, maybe I would just play out the mountain here, because then your opponent already knows about the mountain. If he has a red elemental blast, you could consider trying it out. And yes, then maybe Boss, maybe he's got a blue elemental blast, but he only has 3 cards in hand. Sometimes you've got to take a risk here and force your opponent to have it. Then again, I don't know, of course, if Vince has the red elemental blast. Maybe he's considering another play. Gonna go for the mountain, okay. And yep, there's the red elemental blast. So let's just hope for Vince that this is gonna work out. Does have to tap that mountain though. Oh, but it's not looking good. Bus looking at his hand. It works though. Okay, getting back the angel. This is huge. This is huge for Vince. And also, of course, Bus has the orb, right? But what if he would have had a counterspell, a blue blast for the red blast? That would have almost meant end game for Vince, even though he's still on 20, right? And now Bus is forced to use the Chaos Orb, which is much better. You get rid of the orb. It's a level playing field. Both players top decking again. Yeah, gonna activate here. Gonna go for the Sarah Angel. This is a very important flip for Bus. Yeah, it's a hit. It's always fun to see the different techniques, by the way. You see Bus here, they're using that finger, using 2 hands, where Vince uses 1 hand. There are a lot of different ways to flip. Anyway, Bus 4 cards in hand, passing the turn. And what an exciting third game here, by the way. This is a quarterfinal, as a quarterfinal should be, in my opinion. Very close, 2 good players, 2 good decks. And remember, this is a 50-player online tournament, right? Getting to the semifinals here is a big deal. And both players are so close. And I guess if you're Vince, you could swing in for 2 here, right? Why not put him on 15? There's another Sarah, though. Wow, he's drawing so many Sarahs. 3rd Sarah Angel hitting the board, but a counterspell, though. That is unfortunate. Are we going to see a red elemental blast? No, we're not. Can still attack, of course, with his Mishra's Factory here. Gonna tap it instead. Okay, what option does he have there? Oh, tapped it for the Sarah. Okay, fair enough. Passing the turn. Keeping a white and a red open. There we see a lightning bolt on end step. So does it mean that he's got to draw 7? I mean, Wheel of Fortune's in the graveyard, right? It's usually when players start playing out these bolts out of nowhere, it means they've got like a draw 7 in hand. I believe the wheel, that he tossed the wheel with the recall when he got back the Ancestral Recall. Anyway, let's see. Boss is tapping 3. Going to 16. Oh, tapping more. There's a fireball. Big fireball here on the life total of Vince. How many in total? Yep. Fireball for 6, gonna drop to 11. This is alarming when you're Vince, because it means those 2 other cards are probably also direct damage cards. Yes, you're on 11. You're probably gonna survive those 2 hits, but you're very close to dying here in the 3rd game. When your opponent starts being so aggressive with direct damage, I mean, I don't like it. Oh, look at that, number 4. Sarah Angel, number 4, has landed. What a good draw here for Vince. And also good timing, of course, with Bus being completely tapped out. And I'm sure Bus is regretting that fireball now. We also see a Maze of If being played out. Yeah, so Sarah Angel here. Number 4 finding its way onto the battlefield. Also going to animate the factory and attack with it, it seems. So Bus on 14. Drawing his card. Does he have an answer for the Sarah? I mean, another control magic would be great. Yep, there's a Psionic Blast on the Sarah. So it's exactly as I thought it was. Maybe he had 2 Psionic Blasts in hand. Was planning to take 8 away from Vince. Put him on 3. Then he's in bolt range. But of course, that Sarah kind of changed his plans. Was kind of forced to use the Psionic Blast here on the Sarah Angel. And I wonder if Vince is going to animate the factory, and why not? You know, if he has burn, let him use it, exactly. And if he doesn't, let him take 2 damage. There's the attack. Going to use a bolt here. Getting rid of the Mishra's factory. But like I said, at least the bolt's not targeted at Vince's life total. So I think this was a good decision by Vince. For what it's worth, you know. Vince on 11, Boss on 12. And what a thriller of a match. Boss going through the graveyard, already passed the turn, I believe, to Vince. Vince playing a basic mountain, also passing. Both players kind of top decking, having the same amount of cards in hand, 3 for both. Vince on 11, Boss on 12. Passing the turn. Oh, this is so exciting. 4 cards in hand. Passing the turn. And Boss now going through his hand. Both players having a strip mine, by the way. And Vince does have that mace, but because Boss has the strip mine, doesn't mean much. There we see a lightning bolt here on end step. So Vince dropping to 8. What else can Boss do? Now remember, Vince is also playing with the Fireball. Could sack the Runes of Troycar for 2 mana. So he's got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he could do Fireball for 8. Which is not enough, obviously. But it's important to note here, there's another land. So now he can Fireball for 10, right? So slowly getting closer. Do believe he's only playing with 1 Fireball, though. Oh, counting the lands again. That always makes me nervous. He's going to pass, though. Okay, so Boss drawing card 4 also going to pass. While Vince is still counting his lands. The thing, though, is for Vince, you have to also think about asking now how much direct damage do you still have in your deck. Can you show me what you've already played out? Look at that. So played out 3 lightning bolts out of the 4. Played out only 1 psionic blast out of the 4. A fireball. Played out 2 counterspells already. A blue blast and a chain lightning. The question, of course, is how he sideboarded, right? Did he take out maybe some chain lightnings for a blue blast, for example? We don't know. So 6 cards left in hand for Vince. There's the pass. Psionic blast on end step here. Are we going to see a, red elemental blast countering the psionic blast? And this is important. Important moment for Vince here. No counterspell on that. So psionic blast is countered. Vince is staying on 8. Boss on 12. And it looks like it's just a pass, right? Putting down the hand, passing here to Vince. And also Vince just passing. There's another land, Volcanic Island here for Boss. Who is going to make it into the semifinals? That is the big question. Beastie Boss or Vince? Is it going to be Counterburn or the white-red Moat deck? Four cards here in hand now for Boss. Also just passing. Okay, there's a threat at least. Granite Gargoyle. Finding its way onto the battlefield. Is it going to be countered? That's the first question. So the Gargoyle here. Yep, Vince decided what he wants to tap for it. So 2/2 Flying Gargoyle that you can pump for 1 red plus 0 plus 1. So I guess if you're Vince, you want to make sure that you've got enough red to give it a toughness bigger than 3, so it cannot be bolted or chained. No counterspell by Boss. So does Boss have an answer here? Gonna tap 3. What are we gonna see? It's gonna tap 4, okay. Control Magic, another Control Magic. Are we gonna see a red Elemental Blast? No, we're not. Ooh, these Control Magics are so good for Boss. So another problem here now, but he does have the mace though. But remember, I believe Boss has a strip mine, could strip the mace. Can wait with that, of course. No need to do that right now. Looks like he's going to do something else though, tapping the Hammerheim. There's a Chain Lightning on Vince. Vince can send it back. Cannot kill the gargoyle with it though. So he's going to take his time. Does he want to send it back? That's the big question here. I think the answer is no, because if you send it back, I mean, you could send it back. Probably you could target it on your own gargoyle, and then Boss is probably gonna pump it to 4. I mean, then at least he needs 2 more lands that he's kind of wasted. Is he gonna send it back? Yeah, he's gonna. No, he's not. He's gonna disenchant. Okay, so he's gonna disenchant the control magic. This disenchant is big. This is a big deal. So he's going to disenchant. Is there something that Boss can do here? I believe with the Chain Lightning still on the stack. But of course already targeted at the life total of Vince. And then in response, Vince plays the disenchant on the control magic. And are we going to see a counter spell here? Yep, there's the counter spell on the disenchant. Okay, this is big. What else are we going to do? We have another disenchant. Another disenchant. Wow, double disenchant. And then I believe he still needs to take the 3 damage, right, from the chain? Or am I missing something? Now he has to decide if he wants to send it back or not. I guess the answer is no, right? Because if you send it to Boss, Boss can send it back, kill your own gargoyle. That would be a bad decision in my opinion. But maybe I'm missing something. It looks like he is sending it back though. Wow, that is spectacular. Not quite sure if he's doing that. And now Boss is sending it back, gonna kill the gargoyle, of course. No, he's not targeting the gargoyle? So we see now that Vince has taken a double damage from the chain. He's on 2. There's a mountain. Does he have a bolt to win it? Oh, there's the lightning bolt. Oh, there's the lightning bolt. This wins him the game. This wins him the game. To be honest, Vince, I don't know what you had in hand. Oh, you had Fireball in hand. Yeah. So maybe you figured out if I can deal 3 more damage to Boss, I can win it next turn. You didn't have the mana to sort your own gargoyle, or else would you have stayed alive? Yes, because you were on 2. You've gone up to 4, gone down to 1, and you, wow. This was so incredibly close. And of course, you didn't really care for the gargoyle being killed by the chain in response because you had your Fireball to finish the job. So your reasoning was, I send the chain back, get you low enough so I can kill you with Fireball next turn, and you're also tapped out and I don't have to worry about anything. That makes sense, but unfortunately Boss had that lightning bolt in hand. What an incredibly close game 3, and thank you so much both of you for a spectacular game, and congratulations to Boss for moving on to the semifinals. I want to say the finals, but we're not yet. The semifinals of the Enemy Colors tournament, and in the semifinals you're going to play against Eckhart, and he's playing with Abyss Knights, a very cool deck. So you're going to play against this deck in the semifinals, and of course we're going to continue following Boss. Let's see if he can also win the semis and move all the way on towards the finals, maybe even win the tournament. Who knows? But this is the match, of course, for the next episode. If you want to make sure you don't miss that episode, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. And if you're already subscribed, thank you so much for supporting the show as a subscriber. Please like, share, and comment on this video. All these things are free and really help the channel move forward. And talking about moving forward, I also have my very own Patreon program. Check out patreon.com/TimmyTalks to find out how you can become a patron of the show and help me to continue making these videos for you. And the cool thing is, if you become a patron like Vince and Boss, you can also join in on all the online tournaments that I organize. I don't organize that many, but I would say like every 2 months or so I organize an event. So if you like playing online old school Magic, then you could consider becoming a patron. And also when you become a patron, you get access to the Timmy Talks Discord. And if you become a $2 patron or up, you also get your name into the end scroll at the end of every single video. What end scroll? This end scroll.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the Umba Kazee.